Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Martin Dreyfuss Show. Welcome back to our continued coverage of the Russia and Ukraine war. In our last video, we looked at Putin's side of the Kharkiv battle right now, the focal point of this entire war. He said he's looking to create a buffer zone to stop shelling from Kyiv. However, on the other side, and we cover both sides here on this channel, Zelenskyy says this may only be the first wave of attacks. So we want to take a look at Zelenskyy visiting some of the injured soldiers, and throughout this video we will also see some of the Vovchansk and I believe the Kharkiv attacks that are going on right now. So without any further ado, let's get right on into the news.
It's been a tough few days for these soldiers, for Ukraine, and for President Volodymyr Zelenskyy.
I want to thank you for all you do. Thank you for your bravery.
He's visiting the Kharkiv region in northeast Ukraine after a Russian cross-border offensive took about 200 square kilometers of territory. Ukraine's armed forces say they've now slowed its advance, although they're still fighting in the biggest town in the border area, Vovchansk.
So that was an important distinction for me right there. Vovchansk is the biggest city in the Kharkiv region. It's not that Kharkiv itself is a city, I don't believe then. Also, they said 280 square kilometers of territory. The last I saw, Ukraine said they controlled 60% of the Kharkiv region, meaning that Russia controls 40% of the Kharkiv region, which has, I believe, shifted the border, was a major part of that story in the city. So obviously, there's a lot of injured soldiers, a lot of fighting going on, a lot of bombing going on, but it does seem that Russia has made some advances since they have started this offensive, which a lot of times hasn't been the case. A lot of times they've just stalled out. So a bit of a difference here in this offensive.
The situation is extremely difficult. The enemy is taking positions on the streets of the town of Vovchansk.
Another Russian push just west.
All right, that guy's name was Kharkiv. All right, we're going to go back. Kharkivsky? I'm not saying it right, but it's like Zelenskyy and Kharkiv put together. I know nothing about, those names. I don't know if that's common. I just, as a dumb American, I find it kind of amusing and cool and interesting. But, just a dumb American talking.
On the streets of the town of Vovchansk.
Another Russian push just west has advanced 7 kilometers into Ukraine.
Jesus. Oh, Jesus. It's been a while since we've done some intense videos here, and it's not that it's too much for me to handle, it's just you got to put yourself in these guys' shoes. Like, we're going to go back here, just watch.
Just west has advanced 7 kilometers into Ukraine.
I mean, imagine if you're this guy right here, and there's gunfire.
But if that push goes a few kilometers more, then Russian artillery will be able to shell the northern outskirts of here, Kharkiv, Ukraine's second largest city and home to more than 1 million people. It's already being attacked frequently from the air.
So before we get into these attacks, so it's very interesting that border control was kind of just defined for us here that I've talked about earlier. If they get a little bit more of that border control, then they're able to start shelling Kharkiv. I think I'm saying that right. So I think there's a region in Kharkiv and a city called Kharkiv. Please correct me below in the comments. But if they get a little bit forward, then all of a sudden they have a wide open attack on their second biggest city, which I don't have to tell you why that's terrible. Of course that's terrible. There's tons and tons of people there. And it's terrible when anybody has to go through this, but I mean, now you're exposing 1 million individual people to this, and that's sickening, I guess is the main word that comes to my gut.
With Russia using especially guided bombs, they have wings and a GPS system, and released from bombers can then travel more than 100 kilometers to their target. They're hitting the front line too, says Stepan, who's just come off it for a breather and a smoke.
In the Sumy region, we had a situation where more than 100 guided bombs flew into one of the settlements in 3 days. They use them all over the place, wherever they can. They have unlimited reserves.
100 guided bombs into a settlement in 3 days. To put that into perspective, that's a minimum of, it's like 1.5 bombs an hour, dude, at minimum. So, like, that means for sure every 60 minutes a guided missile is going to launch into your encampment. And someone's probably going to die. Something's going to be blown up. You're going to lose some food. At the very least, you're going to lose some resources. For 3 straight days, every hour on the hour, when are you going to sleep? When are you going to stop moving? When are you going to feel comfortable? You're not. And what are you going to do? Probably nothing, because they're guided missiles. They're not just standing there shooting at you and you can stop them. They're launching long-range explosions at you. That's terrifying. There's no other way to put it.
The fighter jets which could stop the bombers who carry them, along with many of the other weapons promised by Ukraine's allies, have yet to arrive. Although some US arms from a $61 billion US military aid package are now coming in. Meanwhile, this country lacks troops and weaponry. This latest incursion will also mean it's down on morale. John Holman, Al Jazeera, Kharkiv.
I'd rather everyone see the rest of the missiles. The $60 billion aid package is huge. The question is simple, though. Well, there's 2 questions that are simple to me with very complicated answers. The first one is, how much money is the United States willing to supply between the 2 major wars that they're funding, and if they can continue to supply it? The second major question kind of coincides with that. What happens when the money's not enough? What happens when there's not enough troops to fight the Russian troops? We've always said we're not putting soldiers on the ground in Ukraine, but this seems almost like an investment for America at this point. Do I agree with it? I don't know. That's not the position I sit in. I don't make those decisions. I'm just asking the questions. We've made, over $100 billion of investment. I think $180 billion is the number into this war. So, are we going to stop when they don't want to fight anymore? Or if they don't have enough soldiers? Because it doesn't seem like they're on the trajectory to being able to hold out, and win the war, unless you supply people. So, those are the questions I'm sitting with now. As far as, this being only the first wave of attacks, I think that's just logical, sadly. If they're trying to push it forward to start shelling Kharkiv, and that's truthfully what happens, they're right on the cusp of it. So they're right about done with the first wave and moving on to the second wave. But the question then becomes, does Putin want that city for a sanitary zone, or does he already have it? And is that what he considers what he wants? So there's a lot of questions, and we're just here and we're going to have to wait, and we're going to have to see. So I appreciate you tuning in, and I'll catch you guys next time.